Let me get my glasses on here. The Monday, March 24th meeting of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission will come to order. Oh, April 24th meeting of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission will come to order. And let's start with a roll call.
Carolyn Diefendorfer present.
Marty Marino present.
Kathryn Downs present.
And Laura Ritter, chair, present. And I don't know if I think I did not really have a chance to go over the minutes thoroughly. I do appreciate that you got them done so quickly, but I think we can postpone that one until next month. If that would, could I have a motion to? Have you all read them in?
I did.
Not thoroughly, but I did.
I think it's worth taking a look at it, and so we don't have to do it. We don't have to do it today. So could I have a motion to put that off till next month?
I move that we delay approving the minutes of the March 27th, 2023 meeting until the next meeting.
Do you have a second?
I second that.
Let's just take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to delay that approval till next month. And now we will move ahead to new business. And would the arborist like to give her report? And could we put the visuals, the site plan up on the monitors?
It's embedded in the agenda. I can't pull it up from here. Oh.
Well, which case are you hearing first?
12 Hickman is
12
first
Hickman
on the
is
agenda.
here.
Yeah, I have everything. Just there's a lot of pages. What would you guys like to see, the survey or the hand-drawn plan that the applicant submitted?
It's just easy for
Survey?
me if we can all have it, see it all, see the same document. It doesn't, the document that shows the landscaping plan, I think that's the,
Probably the proposed site plan.
yeah, the proposed site plan. That sounds good.
And I don't know how to turn that on, actually.
There we go.
So the applicant actually submitted an updated site plan after submitting the original, and I don't have that printed out. I just have the original application, so
Okay.
there's only a minor difference.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, if you want to. Because I only printed out the original. Perfect. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that looks
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. The following is the report of the city arborist with regard to the above referenced appeal that is to be heard before the commission on Monday, April 24, 2023. The applicant submitted a tree removal application for one protected 10-inch Leland cypress located adjacent to the dwelling. The tree is near the structure, but no damage was observed. While Leland cypress is typically used for hedges and screening, they are not considered high-value trees. However, in this circumstance, it is the only tree on the lot. The lot does not meet minimum density as stated in 253-26 minimum tree density requirements. A, all residential lots, whether or not they contain a structure, and all residentially used lots that are commercial lots or mixed-use lots or other lots that are not residential lots must maintain an average minimum tree density of 26 trees per acre, subject to adjustments as stated in this subsection. Tree density may be achieved by existing trees or planting of new trees. The specific tree density requirements for each lot are as follows. 1, each single-family residence lot in a residence district shall have at least 3 trees on the lot for each 5,000 square feet of land, or 1 tree for each 1,666 square feet of land for lots smaller or larger than 5,000 square feet. In calculating minimum tree density required for a lot where dividing the square footage of the lot by 1,666 results in a tree density requirement that contains a fractional number, that fractional number shall be increased to the next highest number if the fractional number is 0.5 or higher. 2, each residence lot in a residence district other than a single-family residence lot, and each commercial or mixed-use or other lot not in a residence district shall have at least 2 trees per dwelling unit. Section 253-35E may be used to meet the requirements of this subsection. Since 12 Hickman Street has 3 dwelling units, its minimum requirements fall under 253-26A2 above. With 2 trees required per dwelling unit, 6 trees are required in total. As stated in 253-26G, no tree removal or land clearing permit will be issued, and no tree protection plan will be approved if it will result in a tree density less than that specified in subsection A of this section. Since removal of the lot's only protected tree will result in a density less than the required 6 trees, the city is unable to issue the permit. The applicant has submitted a plan to the commission to plant a new serviceberry tree of unspecified size in the backyard. While there is space to plant additional trees on the lot, it would be difficult to plant the 6 trees required with appropriate room for root and canopy growth. I suggest that the commission grant a fee in lieu of planting for 3 or 4 of the required trees. Included in this report, attachment A, is an industry standard graph depicting the relationship of soil space and tree size. When applied to 12 Hickman Street, there is space to accommodate 3 small trees or 1 small species and 1 medium tree. A requirement of 2 or 3 trees, while not meeting the code, will allow the property to move towards compliance. As per 256-36 Administrative Appeals, the Park and Shade Tree Commission has the sole authority to grant a fee in lieu of mitigation. 1, fee in lieu of mitigation. A fee in lieu of mitigation may be granted only by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission through the appeals process and upon a recommendation from the city arborist. Before granting a fee in lieu of mitigation, the applicant must demonstrate the replacement of trees on the project site is not a viable option because meeting the requirements of this article would result in undue hardship, that all reasonable alternatives relevant to protection and mitigation have been exhausted, and that granting a fee in lieu of mitigation will not adversely impact the intent and purposes of these regulations. That's it.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone have questions for Liz?
Not yet.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to ask, but I was wondering if this is a good time to ask where you propose to plant the trees that you mentioned in your report.
So it's just you can do an aerial view, Google Maps, and calculate the available air and soil space. So it's not, I'm not their landscape architect, designer, or landscaper. All I'm saying is that there is reasonable accommodations to plant those 2 to 3 trees.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I should have actually read this before we started, because this is an appeal hearing that has been requested by Margie Orrick, treasurer of 12 Hickman Condo Association, owner of the property located at 12 Hickman Street, and pertains to the removal of 1 tree and the minimum density tree requirements and applicable fee in lieu of mitigation. And I guess, Marjorie, you're here. Would you like to speak? Would you like to come forward and use one of the microphones, please?
You can use this too if you'd rather. Let me just gather my belongings.
Good morning. My name is Margie Orrick. Good morning. My name is Margie Orrick. I'm from 12 Hickman. I'm one of the owners of the condominiums there. I'm here with my husband, Jack. We are appealing the removal of a tree, an evergreen tree, As you can see from the site plan here, or from the survey from 1984, we've marked where the cedar tree is, or Leland cypress, or whatever it is. It's an evergreen tree. Hickman Street is along the top here, and there's a 7-foot driveway easement on the right-hand side, so it's halfway down the driveway. The tree is that we want to remove would be replaced by another tree, a serviceberry that we propose to plant. And the tree that we want to remove there we go. Make sure we've got it here. Is quite close to the house. It's 30 inches from the house. Furthermore, it is growing up, pushing up a third-floor balcony. And the third-floor balcony is the only access for that third-floor unit. They have no front access to their unit. It's only from the rear yard. We consider this a hazard because the tree is right against the house, pushing up against the balcony. The corner of the house that it's next to is a kitchen for one of the units. If there were ever a fire in the kitchen, if there was any kind of problem there, the people on the third floor, they're not getting out. It's also adjacent to a parking space. You can see the concrete barrier for the parking space there. It's just too close. It's the wrong location for a tree. It should not have been planted there. We love trees. We contribute to the Arbor Day Foundation. We contribute to the Rehoboth Memorial Tree Program. In Maryland, we have on a half-acre lot 52 trees. We're tree people, but this tree doesn't belong there. All right. It does not provide any pine cones. It's a mule, basically. There's no pine cones for wildlife. We started this in December of 2022, thinking that the process was to apply for a tree removal permit, $20, which we paid, and that things would progress the same way it did for 14 Hickman, our next-door neighbors. They also had, in early 2022, a tree growing right against their house. They submitted a permit to remove it. It was removed. They did not need to replace it with another tree. They did not need to replace it with multiple trees. They did not need to pay a fine in lieu of mitigation. They have 0 trees on their property. I don't know what happened there, but we thought that was the process, that if your tree was dangerous, you take it down after you pay $20. We were naive. So we're appealing the denial of the removal of the tree. We have paid the $250 fee to do that. 12 Hickman is an interesting home. It's quite unique. It started, let's see here. It started actually in Lewis. The house used to be in Lewis, and it's over 75 years old. It was put on a barge at the end of the 40s or early 50s and moved to Rehoboth and put on this lot. It wasn't put in the correct place. It is, from the marking here, it is overhanging, encroaching on 14 Hickman. So the screen porches are on our property, but the right-hand side, 1 foot 7 inches, is encroaching on our neighbor. So the front yard that you see there is not all our front yard. It's a minimal front yard. At the base of the steps, we have 2 feet 7 inches until the property line. the setback is not really adequate to put a tree in the front, which is why we never have put a tree in the front. We do have a nice habitat here for rabbits. Rabbits love this, this bush here that they hide under, and they nest under the screen porch there. It's quite engaging. All right, so we have other impediments in the front of the house. As you can see, we have some electric lines coming in to the top floor on each side of the house. We've had Miss Utility out. I won't go through all the photos. They're in your packet. Miss Utility has marked the buried lines for electricity under in front of the house. They come along the front and then they curve around going towards 14 Hickman. Miss Utility did not mark the water or the sewer lines. From the basement, we can tell that the water comes into the house somewhere under the left half of the house, and the sewer line exits somewhere under the right half of the house. On the left-hand side of the house, we have the pleasure of having one of the 3-foot by 3-foot utility boxes that are on that block, servicing a third of the street. And we don't want to plant any holes near that. That would be a bad idea. This is the shared driveway. At the end of the driveway is another tree that is on the property line. It's a deciduous tree. As you know, tree survival in the ocean block is more difficult. There are, it's a hard thing to grow trees there. We are in the first half of the block, we are 250 to 300 feet from the terminus, the end of the block. It's quite windy there, and I'm baffled on why it's so windy on that block. For 4 decades, we've vacationed on Newcastle on the first half of that block, and it's not as windy. I don't know if it's the Star of the Sea, the 8-story condominium there that diverts the wind down the canyon of Hickman Street or what, but it's a very windy block, which would make it difficult for a tree in the front there. And of course, salt on leaves disturbs the photosynthesis process. All right. So from here, this plot plan has Hickman Street along the top here. The tree we want to remove is halfway down here. The driveway is on the right-hand side, and coming up at the back of the lot, we have a garage apartment from a Newcastle neighbor that's right on the property line or over the property line. It actually provides a nice backdrop for some hydrangeas that we have here. On the left side here, you'll note that we have a white fence of our 14 Hickman neighbors, and that ends, as you see from the photos in your packet, it ends 2 feet into our living room, but that's okay. Let's see. So the most distinctive part of the backyard is an 8x10 footprint of the stairway that goes up to the 3rd floor. It's the only access for the 3rd floor. And because of that being smack in the middle of the rear, the only place we have to plant anything because of the parking is an area that's 25 feet by 18 feet rectangle back here. And that's why we've selected that area for the bottom left-hand corner for the service berry. So we started this process in December. There we go. In December of 2022, it was denied in January. We filed an appeal in February, read the regulations, the new ones, proposed ones, noting that property line trees can be shared, can be considered to be part of your tree inventory, and revised it in March to include the tree at the end of the driveway. So we plan on removing the evergreen tree. So we start with 2 trees, remove the evergreen tree. We have the one at the end of the driveway. Replace it with a service berry. We still have the one at the end of the driveway. So we start with 2 trees and we end with 2 trees. And we don't consider the front of the house as a viable option to plant an additional tree. Regarding the tree at the end of the driveway, here we have a closer look at it. It's on the property line. Want to thank Liz very much for her photo here. The tree is right here. You'll note that there's a property marker, one of those concrete monuments that are 4 by 4 inches. Visually, it looks like the tree is not on the property line, but if you go back and look at the survey, you'll note that that concrete marker is 9 inches off to our benefit. So it goes, our property goes 9 inches farther to the rear. And with adding 9 inches there, coming back, we are on the property line, right on the property line of that tree. Let's see. So we start with 2 trees, we end with 2 trees. We can't put one in the front. The one we want to remove is a hazard, and that's our main point here. My husband, Jack, has some discussion of some legalities.
Good morning. As my wife indicated, my name is Jack Orrick, and I wanted to talk about one point that Ms. Lingo raised on this regulation. 25326, does it go this way or the other way?
Either way.
Okay. Okay, so 22326A I'm focused on now. So it starts with, the general rule that residential lots must have at least 26 trees per acre, which works out to 3 trees per 5,000 feet. We concede, we believe that A1 is actually the right section of this ordinance that we should be looking at, which says each single-family residence lot in a residence district shall have at least 3 trees on the lot for every 5,000 square feet. 2, if you read, says each residence lot in a residential district other than a single-family residence lot, and each commercial or mixed-use or other lot has to have at least 2 trees per dwelling unit. So as Margie mentioned, 12 Hickman is a condo. It's got 3 units basically, but it's a single-family lot. And I looked through the code to find out if there was any distinction in the code between a single-family residence lot that had a single family on it or a single family residence lot that had a mixed use, or not a mixed use, but had a multiple unit. So our property is located in the R2 commercial district, or residence district, which is the last piece of green that you see there on the edge of Hickman. So the R2 district does allow for there to be more than one single-family residence on a single-family lot. It just so happens that on Hickman Street, there are a number of properties that are multifamily properties, but they're on 5,000 square foot lots. For example, 16 Hickman has 6 units. 10 Hickman, who's right adjacent to us, has 4 units. There's some other properties down the street. I don't have all the information, but I know there are other properties that are either dual units or multiple units. So our contention is that should there need to be a fee in lieu, if the 2 trees is not sufficient, as we've indicated, that there should not be a fee in lieu for 6 trees. At the maximum, it should be only 3 trees. This is a 5,000 square foot lot. And when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense to apply 2, because 2 is obviously designed for a lot that had a much larger footprint. A single family R2 lot and a single family R1 lot, which is what the blue is here, have the same FAR, the same lot coverage requirements. So our property should not be treated differently than other single family lots in Rehoboth. And we believe that, it's clear that the statute was written with that interpretation, because it doesn't talk about dwelling units, it talks about lots. So it talks about a residential lot and a residence other than a single family residence lot, and each commercial or mixed use lot. It just, to me, makes no sense to apply 2 to our situation, which, again, 5,000 square foot lot, same as all the lots on that block, whether they're multiple residences or not. So that was the point I wanted to make. And then another thing, just to point out the fact that we're non-conforming is actually permitted now, because under E of 25326, there's never been a transfer of the property. There's never been a building permit to change the structure, et cetera. So a number of residences on Hickman Street do not have any trees. We contend that because we have essentially 2 trees now, we're willing to plant another tree, so we keep our 2 trees, that would be a fair resolution for the tree committee. Thank you.
Could you clarify, please?
Sure.
How long have you owned this?
We bought the unit in 2018. The house has been there for, as Margie mentioned, we think over 70 years.
Okay, and were any other units transferred recent?
There was a recent sale of the 3rd floor, so that was, I think, in 2022. But the lot itself, which is what these regulations appear to address, has always been owned in 12 Hickman Condo, at least since, I think there was probably a time when it was not owned in the condo. I think the condo was formed in the 80s. But since the 80s, there's been no transfer of the lot, which seems to be the requirement here. And it's really lot coverage. We're not talking about the dwelling per se, we're talking about the lot coverage.
And you don't think the entire lot and property has not been transferred since the 80s?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone?
Yes. Questions? Yes. So I think my first question is for Alex. The reference to single-family lot, are those for lots that are zoned R1 and the multiple units are the R2? Because I happen to be on a lot that has 2 dwelling units, and I have to have 2 trees per dwelling unit. So that's where I want to get that straight, because then I think the other piece to it is, and I'll do my whole question so Liz can think about it if need be, or Alex, you can comment. I think Section E, I think the reason that doesn't apply is because the tree is not dead or significantly diseased.
So yes, E doesn't apply, notwithstanding anything else to the contrary in this section. And if you recall my report, I cannot issue a tree permit if it results in a tree density less than specified.
Right, but the piece that I'm looking at is where it says, in the event that an existing tree on such lot is or
Wait,
becomes.
sorry, you'll have to refer to the code section for me.
Well, I'm still in section E.
Okay, but it doesn't apply in this scenario, so there's,
Right, but I want to,
Yeah.
let me just ask the
Okay.
question about this particular sentence, because
Okay.
I think in one of the documents that they submitted, they looked at that section.
Okay,
I
go
can't swear to that, but it says, in the event that an existing tree on such lot is or becomes dead or significantly diseased, thereby reducing the tree density below the density required by subsection A, it shall be removed and replaced by a tree of at least 3 inches caliper in size, which is of a type listed in Appendix A, and which shall be planted in a location as near to the removed tree as is reasonably possible, and provided further that the density requirements in subsection A of this section shall apply upon any conveyance or transfer of such lot. So the tree's not dead or significantly diseased
no.
either, so.
So this section of code, one of the points it's trying to make is that it's providing an exception if a
Right.
tree dies or becomes diseased, something outside of the owner's control. And in
Right.
those circumstances, we allow them, say they have one tree and it was dead. They could remove it and replace it with one tree.
Right.
Regardless of if the minimum density was 1,000 trees, they could
Right.
replace it with one.
Right.
Yes. And
Okay.
and that's the whole intent of that section right there.
Right.
Is to provide that exception.
Right, okay. So Alex, the question on single-family versus the multiple dwellings, R1 versus R2, can you help us out with that?
Well, wait, let me ask you, because my understanding is that the use is what matters. That's how it's been said by the city solicitor in the past. So like a condo application is reviewed in building and licensing as commercial. That
Correct.
goes to the.
Yeah, that would
okay.
be the case.
Okay.
If you go to 270 zoning, section 4, hold on, let me just pull that up. There is a single-family definition, and that would be for one single family. And this is not for one single family. These are separate units.
Right, okay. Okay.
I'm not sure what the issue is that,
Well, I think part of their point is, and unfortunately, the new code isn't in play yet, so, but I think their point is that they should, that their minimum, if they have to do more than a tree for tree, that their minimum is 3, not 6, I think is one of the points they were
Yeah.
trying to make. And so that's where I was trying to get a handle on them, because it is, yes, it's one building, but it is 3 units.
Right, and that's the difference
yes.
between the proposed code, which we've changed it again, but at one point it had dwelling,
Yes.
which would be the building.
Right.
The current code is
Dwelling units.
unit. And when I
Yes.
first started, 7 years ago, I had to clarify that with the city solicitor because this was all
Right.
strange to me.
Yes.
And so we went over that in depth because I didn't understand it at the time
Right.
either.
Right.
And then just one clarification point about the new code. In the existing code, in section 26 of this chapter, line trees do not count towards density.
Exactly.
No, they do not count in the new code. And in this situation, so the line tree they have is under, we count each of those stems of the sassafras individually. And the stem that potentially is on the line is under 3 inches. So it wouldn't, yes, they're not counted for, they wouldn't be counted. It wouldn't be counted currently or in the future, so.
they won't be counted in the new code
Because of the
either?
size of it.
It's so small, and honestly,
it.
if it was me, I'd rather take it out and not have to worry about a permit and stuff like that. So it wouldn't really be protected.
And is a Leland cypress the type of tree where you can't trim it from the top? It'll die?
They-
You know, because we've talked in the past about certain trees you can't
No, you could, most people hedge their leland. This is a
Okay.
unique one. Most people plant them in a hedge form for like a quick privacy screen, and it's very rarely that they're kind of like open grown, so to speak. So they tend to splay out then. Most people clip them, shape them, etc.
Okay.
And prune them back, if you will.
Okay.
Oh, I should make a note that it is not an eastern red cedar, as that would require additional that would require mitigation. So it is a Leland cypress.
Okay.
Did you want to make any comment about the ownership of the property? Oh, there's, I had a question about whether the tree could be like grandfathered in if the property hadn't been sold, but I'm not sure how it applies if the whole property hasn't been sold, but the units have been sold. So I was asking for a legal
Right, and
comment on that one.
so it's not entirely clear from the statute whether a transfer of a unit equates to a transfer of the lot, because there is an ownership interest in the lot from a condo's owner's perspective. But because that's not clear, I think you should interpret that in favor of the landowner. It's not clear whether the transfer of one unit is a transfer of the lot.
But in this case, it doesn't
I don't
even
even- I don't-
apply, right?
I don't think it applies because that exception doesn't apply.
Yeah.
That paragraph E exception doesn't apply because the tree's not dead or significantly diseased.
I'm actually thinking of how many trees in lieu, how many inches in lieu they would have to have. And I'm kind of sympathetic to the idea that it's a 5,000 square foot lot and the density requirement is 3 trees per 5,000 square feet. It's not 3 trees per dwelling. Well, I don't know, is
Well,
it?
if you go to dwelling unit, it's 2 per unit. I'm subject to that.
Yeah.
It's 2 per unit.
Yeah, which sometimes amounts in more trees per square foot and sometimes amounts in less.
Right, even,
depending.
right, even if you have, I mean, we did a renovation, our lot coverage is the same as a single-family house that is recently built, but we still had to have 2 per unit, not the 3.
So
It
then,
doesn't necessarily make sense, but that's the way the code handles it right now.
Yeah, and that's not how it's going to be, but it is how it
Right,
is.
right.
how is it going to be?
We haven't finished the draft yet, but
Yeah.
it's changing to square footage, so
Yeah,
everything would be the same.
The proposal that's out on the table but hasn't been voted on yet is that it would be 3. It wouldn't be 2 per unit. It would be based on the size of the lot. So half of me thinks you guys would be better off waiting until the new code gets, trim it for now and wait on the new code, because then you're looking at 3 as the minimum density instead of 6 under the current code.
It makes sense that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean,
also.
if you trim, you can probably get through this summer, and hopefully by fall, the new code is in play.
What is your thought on time frame, Liz, of the new code?
I believe the intent is to bring it back to the May workshop and then for a vote in May,
Yeah.
Okay,
pending
so-
commissioners' comments.
So, I mean, if you trimmed off the side that's right
And the-
there next to the kitchen and
and the
trimmed it
top.
from the top,
Yeah.
you could probably get away with it till the new code goes into effect, is what I would.
But it sounds like they're going to be right back here again, quite frankly. So I think it might, I don't know, Alex might have advice, but I think it makes more sense to make a decision now. They don't have to follow through with that decision, right? So if you say, okay, well, the fee in lieu is X and you have to plant 2 trees, they cannot do that. And then they can apply again when the new code passes and come back here again. Not that we want
It's a lot
that,
of
that
money
seems
just to keep coming
unnecessarily.
back.
Could we just hold this in abeyance? I mean, my concern is that I have a copy of what I found on the website as the new code. And I didn't see where it made the same distinction that Ms. Lingo just mentioned. It still says each lot other than a residential zone lot with a single-family dwelling shall have at least 2 trees per dwelling. Now, if it says each
So at the-
5,000,
at the
each lot in
last-
excess of 5,000 feet, has there been an amendment there?
At the last workshop where the proposed code was reviewed, that came out in the last workshop. So they're working on that. We haven't seen the new proposed wording based on the comments received at the last workshop meeting.
In the public comments. We had
Right.
about 60 comments in total that we reviewed, including that one as one of 3 that was brought to the commissioners for policy discussion.
Right, so as Liz mentioned, I believe that the May 8th workshop is hopefully where we will see additional changes to the proposed code based on the input that was discussed at the April workshop.
Well, I mean, I would suggest then that we hold everything in abeyance pending the adoption of the new code, so we don't have to go back through an application. You've seen our plan, you know what we want to do. I think the only question is it 6 or is it 3? So if we can agree that that's
Right.
the issue.
Right, and if it's 3, you may choose to go with, Liz had indicated that
Too small. or
2
whatever.
small and 1, or 2 or 3 small, whatever.
Right.
You might be able to find room for 3 trees, and then you would have no fee in lieu.
I think I would caution our commission for carrying a case under one code and pushing it multiple meetings without a decision to where a new code is passed. I don't think that would make sense legally. But let me read you guys again. There's one section about the fee in lieu of mitigation on 25336, that granting a fee in lieu of mitigation will not adversely impact the intent and purposes of these regulations. So that gives you guys the ability to say, like, what is in the spirit, what is the intent of this code, and that doesn't have to mean that we're issuing a fee in lieu of mitigation of 6 trees, or it could be 6 trees, but it could be less money. Like, I mean, Alex, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that's what gives them the license to say this is a unique situation, and that we don't think the intent of the code was to take a huge apartment complex and say it's got to have 300 trees because it has 150 units in it, right?
Correct. And
That's my thought.
yeah,
at
that
least.
gives the commission the ability to consider the individual property and tailor its recommendations to that individual property. And one thing about the new code, before I forget, I'm not sure it's going to apply retroactively, so it might require whole new application.
A new permit.
It would,
Yeah.
yes.
A new permit, right.
And
Which
would that
is
be
just-
if we were returning another $250, or is that a $20 tree removal permit
I think
with?
The commission, the advertising fees, the commission is what costs money coming here today. The
Right,
lawyer,
right,
the
yeah, right,
advertising.
right,
So
but
if you come back to the commission, you would have to pay, I believe the fee is increased to $400 or $450 for the commission.
Even though you've already seen our plan?
Everything has to be re-advertised. The lawyer has to show up again. We're losing. That's not even a break even at that. Yeah.
So, well, if under the new code you agree to everything and aren't asking for any exceptions, you would not have to come back to this body.
Yes.
I have an
But let me ask Alex a question, because I think what Liz is getting at is we as a commission could say 3 trees, if you're going to plant 3, you're good. If you're not going to plant 3, it's X dollars per inch or per tree. See, we've been talking trees here, not inches.
Yeah. Because minimum.
Because is minimum, right, because the minimum. So, but you only have to pay that if you don't plant the 3 trees. Right?
You don't
Right. So,
meet
like,
the
if
minimum
you-
density.
Like, yes.
Yes.
So if we say, we want you to do 3, for whatever you don't do, it's, I guess, the minimum tree under is 3 inches.
3 inches.
So if we were to say X dollars per inch, you plant 2, then your fee is based on the one you don't plant. If you decide we'll just plant 3, you're good to go, and you could do that now.
We have no space to put 3, in my opinion. Can I have an overhead? Can we turn that on?
They have the
ahead.
copies in front of them.
Okay, fine. On the site
So the-
plan,
I would say the option there is the lines and the picnic table are all those are not fixed necessarily. I mean, the poles for the clothing line are not necessarily fixed items. So where they're proposing to put in shrubs and stuff, something like a hornbeam would easily fit in there.
Right. Now, let me ask Liz about the, I know your property line doesn't go all the way to the sidewalk, but
There's not space.
there's
It's too
not space?
narrow.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, no, I wasn't talking between the sidewalk and the street. I was
Oh.
talking sidewalk and house. I know that there's those, the flags
Mm-hmm.
show a small species tree, but are there salt-tolerant small species that
Oh, yeah.
would do okay there?
Yeah, they're actually for ocean block homes. There's a few extra trees that we allow them to plant,
Right.
including a Japanese lilac, which stays really small and grows right up on the bandstand where there is nothing but salt and wind.
Right. So there is, because we can, I think Liz would agree, they can go over into the, quote, public property that's between that property line and the sidewalk on the house side.
and that's where the buried lines
I'd have to look
are,
at
the buried electrical lines.
How big that was.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the picture I saw showed the lines right up against the sidewalk, the flags right against the sidewalk, and then some further in where there is some room, in theory, in the middle.
I mean, a lot of times when we do our city's sidewalks, we grant them space behind the sidewalk. Is that what you're talking about? Right away is actually between the sidewalk and the front property line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so they could, let me see if I can find a picture. Let me get to that.
The second, if she scoot that down so you can see. Nope.
There's effectively, well, between the curb and the
So I'm
sidewalk
looking
is
at, I
9
don't know if you can
inches.
pull, I don't know if you can pull that one up that has the little flags. If you can show that one. So the flags appear to be, it's on page 10. If you can show page 10 of your document.
Is it this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks to me like those flags are somewhat against the sidewalk itself.
There's, some are against the sidewalk and some are right at the property line.
Right, so for example, it looks to me like there would be, in theory, enough space for a small species, let me,
Yeah, so the only requirement, like if you look at Miss Utility, is to hand dig within a certain number of inches. So like they
Okay,
can't
yeah.
go in with an excavator and
oh,
just dig out
right,
holes.
Right, I
So-
would say a small species, you'd be using a hand shovel.
Yeah, I mean, most of the landscapers don't use equipment to plant
Right.
1 or 2 trees anyways, honestly.
Just wanted to bring up the point of possibly building a container and planting the tree in a container, which wouldn't then be, the utility lines wouldn't be a part of the consideration. I mean, removing that big bush would be one spot where you could build a box and plant one of the small acceptable trees in that.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that you could take out that shrub where the rabbits like to nest and put in a small tree there, or even something that was a more upright larger species. But definitely a small species could go right there. So that could be one spot.
We're concerned about the maintenance of the screen on the screen porch. With the wind and the branches blowing against the screen, that's replacing the screen annually.
Yeah, that's why I said upright wouldn't. I mean, because that's on the west side of the property, so it's against the prevailing wind direction. So as long as you had a appropriately selected and planted tree, shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that if you were to say plant an Armstrong maple, which is a conical version of a red maple, then
Is it salt tolerant?
relatively speaking, yes.
That location, they're pretty far down the block. It's really just the first like
Half a block.
Couple.
five on the south side of every block. It's usually just the first like. I'm just thinking of Rehoboth Avenue, which is extra wide, but the first 5 trees on the south side of Rehoboth Avenue are the ones that have to be replaced most often. So they're far enough down. Now, if they stuck it out in the middle of the road, it might be different.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think, right there, you could plant something like that, and you'd never have to really worry about branches being a problem with your screen porch.
Yeah, same with the Japanese lilacs are pretty similar. They stay relatively compact.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at ours on Rehoboth Avenue, and they're planted at the streetscape, so they give you a clue.
Yeah.
And in the backyard, it appears if you just spun the picnic table, you got the proposed location for the one, spin the picnic table, there's enough room on the other side of the picnic table for a second one in the backyard. So to me, based on the type of tree you select, it does to me look like you could easily get 3 on here.
Well, that's why I said like one small and one medium size, or three smaller species would be. I mean, listen, it comes down to, and you guys have these cases. You don't see the cases where people plant 10 hornbeams to satisfy the requirement rather than the spirit, if you will. So it can definitely be done. They could plant a hedge of hornbeams, or they have existing shrubs, shoom, right down. They could fit 10 down that line and never have to prune them.
Yeah, I wouldn't, yeah.
Right.
But like I said, it's more the spirit. We would rather have a couple of trees that do well than like just a hedge of them.
Right.
But to each person, some people love that hedge.
Yep.
I don't blame them.
Right.
This is a 10-bedroom home with 20 people moving from the parking areas weekly, hauling stuff in and out. I can't imagine having more than one tree in the back here because people walk on each side of the staircase and kids play in the yard. I just can't imagine having another one here. To clarify, the existing hardwood, the one that has a sassafras leaf, this one does not count.
No, it does not count for it does not count for or against you. So it could be removed without a permit because it's so small. But on the flip side, it does not count in your favor.
Okay.
I mean, so
We're reluctant to mess with that. We had a sinkhole a couple years ago where a car tire almost went into a 2-foot deep hole because of a buried tank in this area. We filled it with gravel and it's been okay, but I don't know where that tank or other tanks are. I'm reluctant to dig that up.
I definitely would not. No, definitely would not dig it up.
No.
Yeah.
Because you have to get DENREC involved and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So
I was just making a point of clarification that it doesn't count for you, but it also doesn't count against you in these situations.
Right.
as far as the hornbeams, are you saying they would go along this this
Could do them
white
along the
fence?
fence.
I mean, they take up no space, horn beams.
Yeah, you could do horn beams. You could also do, like I said, Armstrong maples, or you could do a conical version of an oak. You could
Yeah, we have
do-
those at the circle when you come into town.
Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna, I mean, you could take out those shrubs and plant those along that line.
Can the hornbeam go between the shrubs?
Well, it depends on how, I mean, are the shrubs grown together like a hedge, or, pardon?
There-
There were actually other bayberry bushes that we took out.
If you've got room to dig, if they have room to dig a hole, then you wouldn't have to remove the shrubs, correct?
Right, if you've
Yeah.
got, if there's enough space between those shrubs.
It's
I mean,
a good 6 feet.
they're 6 feet.
Sure,
then you
between
would have
them.
plenty of room to plant in between each one of those, and then you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 trees. And you could,
They could also pair them I see a lot of people when they have to plant new trees, they'll pair them in the corner, like one on each side of the corner is a common thing too. So, I mean, they're option. It just depends on your personal likes and dislikes.
yeah, but you could definitely plant between each one of the shrubs. No, I mean, I would make sure you get a fairly conical species. I mean, you wouldn't want a bunch of white oaks planted back there.
I don't know. They would grow up and be taller than all the buildings, so it'd be an issue.
Exactly. and
What,
then you
what
wouldn't have to
conical
worry.
species would you recommend?
Well,
You probably should talk to your actual landscaper, but there are a lot of varieties that have native trees that have cultivars that are upright or fastigiate. if you
And
wanna look them up.
from the approved list, which
Yeah,
ones
so
are
like
those?
oak would be green pillar oak would be one that would be a native cultivar of a native tree.
summer
Tower,
towers.
Summers Tower, red bud.
Summers Tower, yeah, redbud. There you could do, like I said, Armstrong maples. Not that I'm like some, I don't grow Armstrong maples. I'm not saying, I'm just
Well,
something that,
People plant them a lot. They are planted.
but they are planted a lot. and
You got
they-
slender sweet gum, the slender tulip poplar. I mean, there's a narrow cultivar of most trees.
And there are also, if you can find them, and they're really pretty, there's a slender variety of a ginkgo.
Yeah, and a ginkgo is so it's not on the native tree list, but it is on the ocean block tree list.
Yeah, I
That Zelkova and the Japanese lilac.
Yeah.
Where is the ocean block tree list? I haven't seen that. I've only seen the
I
native
would have
list.
sent. Yes, I would have. I sent it to you. I can send it to you again now.
Thank you.
Can you send it to me too?
It's just a couple more species. Well, most of the natives are really well suited. I mean, a juniper, for example, you can get really beautiful. The Berkey one, the upright.
Oh, yeah.
If you can find it, that is a beautiful narrow eastern red cedar.
Oh, actually, yeah, you could plant tailored junipers.
Yeah.
They only get like 3 to 4 feet wide. And
Yes, they're the native juniperus.
they're the native juniper. It's a Juniperus virginiana Taylor.
Okay, anyone have any more questions about the question of,
No, I think where we need to end up is what do we believe the minimum tree density should be for them? And if they choose not to plant them, what would be the fee?
yes,
Is probably where we need to end up.
yes, but I want to close the public part of the hearing. So if
Right.
there's anything else that we want input from them, try to think of it now,
Yeah,
because once we close the public part, we're supposed to
deliberate.
deliberate on our own. So anybody have anything else they want to ask?
We do have permission to trim the tree that's against the house?
Yeah, you don't need permission to trim it.
Okay. House,
And Liz has indicated it won't kill it, so.
right, okay. How much can we trim it?
Probably as much as you want.
What do you, I don't understand, what do you mean?
Well, you can't kill it.
Quantity.
Right, yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
what
no,
kind of
no,
quan-
but-
You can't trim it to 3 inches above the ground.
Right, right,
Right.
right,
But no,
right.
you can do whatever you want in the way of pruning.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if the only concern, because I wouldn't be concerned about the roots on that tree, quite frankly. It's more likely to fall over than it is to damage a building. If it was me, I would just clip it back from the structure. They take shearing, hedging, clipping really easily.
So there is section 25330B, which lists exempt activities, which you're allowed to do. Trimming of trees, subsection 1, trimming of trees when necessary to conduct a survey or site examination. Sorry, that's the wrong section. Section 2, routine tree maintenance such as trimming that is not intended to result in the eventual death of the tree, but rather in order to maintain a healthy, neat, and orderly appearance, or any other activity which is commonly recognized as routine tree maintenance.
You can
Okay.
do that.
Yes. And when do we think the good guess is, the range of time when the new ordinance is in effect?
Hopefully this summer. I mean, Liz had indicated it, I believe it's supposed to be on the agenda for the May 8th workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, workshops aren't voting meetings, right? So the next meeting, mid-May would be the voting meeting, with any luck then. But if not, I would still hope that it's sometime this summer. So-
summer, fall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any feelings about this that they want to? Does anyone on, okay, I'm going to close the public portion.
One more question that
okay.
we have. For any future plan, if we had trees in the back, is that adequate without having a tree in the front?
I believe the answer is yes, right, Liz?
I don't remember.
No, I think
I
she's
can't
saying
say.
is if they planted enough in the back.
I know, I can't remember if the
Oh, if the
front
front-
tree is exempted that far. I don't think,
Okay.
I think at her distance, it still would be required. But I think it came to a measurement in the draft. I really
So are
can't-
you
couldn't
asking
say.
about under the new code or the current code?
The new code,
Yeah, I don't remember.
or
I
both?
would say
Both.
it'd be safe to assume that yes, it would be required. And it would be a happy coincidence if somehow you were within the distance that it wasn't, but I just couldn't guarantee that.
And what is the distance?
I don't have all this
Yeah,
memorized.
Right. It's not the 150-foot distance. Is it the distance from the terminus or the distance from the sidewalk?
I'm sorry, I don't have
It has
all
to
that
do,
memorized.
yeah, it has to do with distance off the ocean, correct, or down the.
I can't remember. We went back and forth on where it started at the end of the street, at the edge of the boardwalk, at the edge of the, so.
But it's not between the property line and the sidewalk. It's the terminus of the block, or whatever that is.
Yeah, it's like starting at the boardwalk area.
Got it, okay. I think that's it for our questions.
And you want to continue this here? You're not withdrawing this?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting, and we'll proceed to a discussion among the commission members as to how we want to move forward.
I mean, from my perspective, I never, to me, if, from a minimum tree density standpoint, I like the idea of of 3. Just because they, if you have multiple, they can't, there's no way they can put 6 on there. Well, there is if they do conicals. Unless we split the difference. I don't know, but
Like putting little trees is just to comply with.
Exactly. I would rather have, I would rather say 3 and have them be decent quality trees than to put them, a lot of little trees.
Yeah, just a
Right.
basic hedge.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I would be okay with 3. But I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Certainly 3 would work. I mean, you could do 2 between like the shrubs. You could even do 3 between the shrubs, 3 nice conical species like the oaks or the red buds, the conical version of those, and then something out front, like dig up the shrub that's pictured, the evergreen shrub, and plant something there. I mean, I think 3 trees would be reasonable. I mean, they could probably even get away with 4, doing 3 in the back and 1 in the front.
So would you be for requiring 4 or requiring 3 and leaving it up to them if they want to plant more than that?
I would probably require 3, and then if they want to plant another one just to make it look more balanced, then that would be reasonable. They'd have reasonable space to do it.
I'm fine with 3. I agree with the other members of the committee that 3 would be fine, and I think it's more in the spirit of the code. I think you're looking for something that enhances the property rather than just complies.
I think, it sounds like, I pretty much agree, even though that technically they should have, under the current code, they would have to have more. I think we can make it, in this case, they've presented a lot of information about how hard it is to plant the trees. So I think 3 is a good number. And could I have a motion?
Well, can I ask a question first? Because we have minimum density sub-requirements. So it needs to be clear in the motion which sub-requirements they need to meet.
Whoa, what does that
Right, so the size has to stand, the 3 inches, 12 feet. There normally would be a maximum of 1 small species, and a maximum of, in this case, because the evergreens are done by third and not by square footage, a maximum of 2 evergreens. And this would be if there was 6. So if we're doing for 3.
We're doing 3. If
1 small species and 1 evergreen are maximum.
Right.
So just to keep that in mind, and then the front yard setback would also be a requirement.
I mean, they could do like a Summer Towers red bud out front and then do
2
2
green
or
pillars.
3 green pillars in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
3 if they wanted to.
Which, under the new code, those narrow cultivars won't be a permitted species since, yeah. Just FYI. It's fine for now. I'm just warning them if they come back and expect to be able to plant those, they would not be able to. So they would meet it.
Wait, the tree in the front is to bring it up to code?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But they don't really have to come up to code because.
Well, if we go with 3 on a 5,000 square foot lot, of the 3 trees, 1 has to be in the front yard under both the current and the future code.
Yeah, but
correct.
their whole property has not changed hands. Since
It
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, I don't
That
believe.
doesn't matter.
Because they're taking
They're
down.
taking down a tree, yeah.
They're taking down a tree that is not dead
Oh,
or
right, it's not dead. I
diseased.
Right,
forgot. Yeah.
right, right.
I mean, listen, it's up to you guys if we decide to leave the front yard requirement or not. It would serve them well because if they ever have to come back to do any
anything else, they would be forced to put
If
one
they
there
ever come
then.
back for a building permit or one of the trees dies and they have to replace it,
Right, right.
they could be kind of getting themselves in a hole a little bit. So it's much better for them to do that.
To go ahead and put it in now.
Yeah, rather than
Right.
take your chances that you may, I mean, you think you'll never need a land disturbance, a building permit again. That's highly unlikely.
Right.
To me.
And if you can do the conical species now, I would take advantage of that
Yes, yes.
personally.
Okay, then, can we have a motion?
So I'm
Okay, we try to make it,
I'm gonna try.
okay.
Make it what
This is a
succinct.
mind-bending
I'm-
motion to me.
Okay,
so-
so I move that we require 3 trees, maximum 1 small species, maximum 1 evergreen, 1 must go in the front yard. From a size perspective, I think we're looking at
2 to 2.5, 2
Two-
2.5.
2.5 to 3 inch caliper, 10 to 12 feet in height.
Is that too high?
Pardon?
Is that a good height? I was thinking they were gonna be smaller when they planted them, but. 10
Well,
Under the current code, they have to be,
The current code is 3 inches and 12 or 12.
Yeah, but we.
yeah.
Wouldn't
But
help
let's,
We
go if we
could-
go to 2.5 to 3 inches, 10 to 12 feet, 3 trees, maximum 1 small species, maximum 1 evergreen, 1 in the front yard.
And that's not saying you have to plant an evergreen. That's
Right, just saying if you choose to, you can only do 1. Right.
So,
We have to mention the
and if there's-
removal.
And if this assumes we're granting the removal permit.
Well,
I think we have to.
this is more of a fee in lieu. The removal
Right.
permit will be I mean,
Right,
assuming they
right,
meet your conditions, the
Right,
removal
and then
permit will be granted.
if you choose not to plant, let's say you choose only to do 2, the fee in lieu that I would propose would be $400 per inch for a 3-inch tree.
that's,
Wait, you guys have already set your fee at 400?
That's what I said,
Okay.
400 for a 3-inch
So
tree.
the
400 per
minimum-
inch, so a minimum of $1,200 for a tree.
So what's the minimum number of trees they're
3.
required to plant?
Well, my suggestion, well, I guess I don't know exactly how I'm saying this, but I believe that the minimum density for them should be 3 trees.
correct.
But
At minimum, I think they should have to plant 2.
so then
Okay, so the
other-
maximum fee in lieu would be for one
Okay.
tree. Is that better?
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So,
wait, hang on, let's just say that this, in this motion, they would be permitted to remove the tree, and the fee, the commission is going to impose this following fee in lieu.
Well, they would have to submit a planting plan for updated, they would have to pay their fee in lieu, and then they'd be granted their tree removal permit, meeting the conditions
Okay,
set
so we
forth.
don't even have to mention the removing part?
I mean, those would be the conditions in order to obtain a tree
They've
removal
appealed
permit.
your denial,
So-
so we have to say we will allow them to.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay,
upon
so
meeting these conditions.
so I propose that a tree removal permit be issued under the following conditions. The minimum tree density for them will be 3 trees. They are required to plant at least 2. Of the 3 trees, and of the 2 that get planted, one's got to be in the front yard. One can be a maximum of 1 small species, maximum of 1 evergreen. The tree should be 2.5 to 3 inches, 10 to 12 feet in height. Should they choose to not plant one of those trees, the fee in lieu would be $400 per inch for a 3-inch tree.
And you said the minimum would be 2?
Minimum 2, but.
Preferably 3.
Preferably 3, so they can basically pay a fee in lieu for a maximum of 1.
Do I agree or do
But
I?
wait, do
I
you?
need a- we need a second.
Do we
We need
all,
a
I
second.
second
are we
that.
all going to agree on the $1,200 for the third tree? Does that sound good?
Wait, if somebody wants to modify the motion, that's fine, but that's my motion.
Okay,
I second.
okay. Okay, does anyone want to have any comments on, should it be a $1,200 fee? We can make that. We said 400 was a minimum, so I guess, and 3 inches is it's kind of set from our previous meeting that it should be $1,200. I'm just checking in with you all to see if we're all in agreement.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. I'm supposed to repeat the motion. We are going to approve removal of the tree permit under the following conditions. The density required for that lot will be 3 trees, and at least 2 trees must be planted, and one can be a small species, and no more than 1 evergreen, and 1 must be planted in the front yard. If you don't plant 3 trees, the fee in lieu for the third tree will be $1,200. And the trees must be 2.5 to 3 inches in caliper for the fee in lieu. No, wait. For the trees that are planted, there must be 2.5 to 3 inches of caliper and 10 to 12 inches in height.
12 feet.
In feet? I should have left it to you. Okay. If you vote
For it.
yes, that means all of that I just said is approved. And if you vote no, that means they can't take the tree out and they'll still have a problem because they'll still won't be up to density. Okay, so how do we vote?
I vote aye.
If you could state the reasons why you're voting that way, and feel free to adopt your colleagues' reasons if they stated it well.
Okay. I vote aye because I think it's fair that the density be 3 trees. And I think based on their lot, they have room to plant at least 2 and potentially a third. So for those reasons, I vote aye.
I also vote aye for the same reasons. I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable, and that's it.
I vote aye also because it seems, it seems fair. I think that we've explored different places where you can plant these species, and given some reasonable tree species that would fit in the space. So, and I think the fee in lieu is reasonable.
The chair also votes aye. I think that all in all, reducing the total number of trees makes sense because there's multiple dwelling units, but not really logical space on the lot for 6 new trees. So I also vote aye, and for the same reasons that everyone else has said. So I think with that, the motion carries unanimously, and we thank you for your participation, and we can move on to our last case.
I do have a procedural question. We need to we need to produce a plan with those trees on it. And is that a $20 fee, or is that no fee? Or we don't have to come back here again if our plan matches your criteria. It's not a $450 fee.
No, the plan is submitted to me, but there is a $50 permit fee that you guys have not paid. That's only upon issuance of the permit. So it's basically, it's $70 to take out a tree, 20 to apply, and 50 for the permit. Currently, that all changes.
And we've already paid the 20.
Yes.
We just pay that once.
Yep. Yep. So I'll email you the tree list. I had that written down in my notes, and then you can just email me back the plan when you get it done, or you can drop it off to my attention at the desk.
Right, okay. And
Then it gets reviewed. If it meets the criteria issued by the commission, then the permit will be issued, and then they'll contact you saying you owe the $50 to pick up the permit and signatures and stuff like that.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for all the preparation. We appreciate it.
And for your participation.
Oh, let's move on to the second case, which is requested by Rebecca Snow of Terra Landscapes on behalf of owner Kathryn Rozansky, owner of the property at 100 East Lake Drive, and pertains to the removal of 3 trees, 1 6-inch diameter hackberry, 1 10-inch diameter pine, and 1 12-inch diameter pine, located along the property line where the city sidewalk is to be installed.
And can you turn on the projector again so they can see the site plan? Running the battery down on it. The following is a report of the city arborist regarding the above referenced request that is to be heard before the commission on Monday, April 24, 2023. The applicant has submitted a request to remove 3 street trees in fair to good condition, a 6-inch diameter hackberry, a 10-inch diameter loblolly pine, and a 12-inch diameter loblolly pine. They are located adjacent to 100 East Lake Drive on the Prospect Street side of the property. A new home is to be constructed on the lot, and city code requires a new sidewalk along Prospect Street. There is no option to retain these trees while installing the required sidewalk. A planting plan was not submitted to replace the trees. As per city code, Parks and Shade Tree Commission has the authority to permit the removal of trees on city property, 253-12 Maintenance C. No person shall plant, spray, preserve, prune, remove, cut above ground, or otherwise disturb any tree on any street or municipal-owned property without first receiving permission from the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. Any tree removed from municipal-owned property must be replaced unless otherwise authorized by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission.
I guess I want to understand, they don't have a choice about putting the sidewalk in, so
No.
what do we need to do? Just to prove that the sidewalk can go in? Or in theory, are we looking at replacement trees? Because they don't have a choice in this.
Any tree removed from municipal-owned property must be replaced unless otherwise authorized by this commission.
Okay.
So we're talking about replacing trees on city property.
These trees are growing in the right-of-way. They have to install the sidewalk by city code. They're just on this side of the street. There is no other option. This is not driveway on either side. The sidewalk has to go there, and those 3 trees have to come out.
Right.
So the question is if you want to make them replace them or pay a fee in lieu or whatever it may be.
Does anyone have any questions for Liz?
I guess my one question would be, and I don't know if we know the answer to this, and I might be able to tell by looking at the survey. Is the lot? Do they they're going to have they have to meet the minimum, but what do they have on the lot at this point that's going to
They have a bunch of trees on the right-hand side, if you can see on the survey.
Okay.
Some are coming out, and there's several on the right-of-way side along East Lake that will be retained on city property.
Okay.
There are a number of trees there.
Okay.
Liz, has this happened before? Could you speak up, please? Has this happened before?
I'm not sure, honestly. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think if we've ever had like a brand new sidewalk installed that affected trees. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Okay.
I mean, we've had plenty of driveways,
Right.
which are also required, so. But a driveway would be to the benefit of one property, whereas this is a public benefit, the sidewalk and the tree.
So the trees are not on their property, so they are, I mean, I love trees, so I hate saying this, but, so they are essentially being penalized for something that's not on their property. If we say you gotta pay a
Right.
fee.
Well, they're getting to develop a lot, though.
They
They're
are
getting a
getting to
house out of
develop.
it.
They are getting a house.
Yeah, I mean, they have no other option. This is what it has to be.
Right, the city is saying you have to put in the sidewalk.
If you want
So
your
the city's getting a
house.
sidewalk out of this.
The city's getting a sidewalk out of this. I'd prefer to have the trees personally, but
Yeah.
the city
can we tell-
wins,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
It's a sidewalk to nowhere anyway, because it doesn't go around the corner.
I know,
does
but I
it?
guess we're not allowed to say,
It's
forget
a
the
stupid
sidewalk.
Well, then it'll make a contiguous sidewalk on that side of Prospect to
yes,
the beach.
Yes,
True.
yes. So I think the public is benefiting from the sidewalk, the city is benefiting from the sidewalk.
And I'm losing out on my trees.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, but we can require them to plant 3 other trees.
Yeah,
Or we can require them to plant something less than that. We don't have to go, if I think what Liz is saying is we don't have to go with 3 either.
You don't.
That's correct, yeah.
We could require them to plant
Yeah, we can make
one additional, in addition to the minimum they have to have on their lot, we could say you have to have a 4th or
Yes.
whatever,
and it
you know,
needs-
to make up for the fact that the city's forcing you to remove 3.
Yeah, so you can exempt them. You can do a fee in lieu for some or all of the inches, or you can require planting for some or all of the trees.
I mean, so I suppose we could say we would like to have them plant at least one shade.
So,
Hang on one second. Do you represent that property owner? Would you like to make a statement?
Go for
Okay.
it.
come forward.
My name is Rebecca Snow with Terra Landscapes, and I am representing the Rozanskys in this discussion. And I have some site photos that may help you make your determination and how you want to proceed. So the first site photo is of where these actual trees are. So I'll put it up
Yeah,
here.
you can move that. Mm-hmm, yep.
So you can very clearly see that those 3 trees are in the way of where this sidewalk is going to continue all the way down to the corner. I'm going to show you I have quite a few site photos. There's a lot too many to print out. So I'm going to show you, if it's okay to put my phone on here, what it looks like on the lake side of the property, because there's a very dense stand of trees there already, and there really, in my opinion, is not room to plant additional trees there. The trees that are on the lake side of the property are not in good condition. They're being overtaken by English ivy. So that is something that the homeowners will probably want to bring to your attention throughout this process at some point anyway, because they're compromised trees because of the English ivy invasion. So I'll show you a few photos if that's okay. You may have to zoom in a little bit on this. So there are quite a few eastern red cedars and some hollies there on the lake side of the property. I can move this up. There you go.
Perfect.
So that's, you can see it's quite dense there, and it's like that the entire length of the property. Sorry.
Boss is calling.
Yeah.
So I'll scroll through a couple of these pictures. There's also a fence there that is on city property that at some point will need to be discussed. The homeowners would like to remove that, but that is sort of a barrier to, you know, exactly where we can plant because it is there now. So you can see more of the trees along the fence line. And that is one of the trees that's not in great condition. So I'm going to zoom in on that because it looks like a live tree, but most of that green is actually English ivy. So we do need to kind of take a look at some of the trees that are over there. So that might help you make your decision. We can only be, I believe, 30 feet in from the corner. So when we're looking at available space to plant on lakeside, we don't want anything too close to the corner that would impede upon traffic being able to view around the corner to see who's coming. So that limits the amount of space we have to plant in. And these trees are on the survey. It's just, it's hard to see exactly how much space they take up when you're looking at the symbols on the survey.
What about, is there room at the back of the lot, like behind, say, the shed, for example?
There is actually already a tree remediation plan submitted for the inside the property line.
Okay.
For the removal of some of the trees in that stand. You can see in this location, that is the area that we're looking at. And some of those are inside the property line, some of those are not inside the property line. And there are a few of them that are actually in the footprint of the proposed structure that's being built there. So the first step in this process is to get the building permit for the structure, which requires the removal of these 3 trees. After the building permit is approved, then we can look at the tree remediation on the lot itself, is what I understand the order of events that needs to happen.
You have, I'm assuming, Liz, you have not seen the planning plan that goes with the building permit at
Yeah,
this point?
they've
Okay.
submitted all that.
Okay.
But we can't move forward
Right.
with, they cannot
Right.
dig a
I
hole,
get it.
they cannot put their pilings in this ground until this commission gives them the okay to remove this, then we can issue the permits. And they're on a
Okay.
tight time frame because that ends May 15th. So this
Okay,
has to be
got it.
decided
Got
today.
it. Got it. Okay.
Um,
Well, we don't have a choice but to let them remove the trees and put in the sidewalk. So the question becomes,
Remediation.
what are we going to require?
Right. And as Liz mentioned, you have some flexibility here. You can require all 3 or none of them to be replaced. It's your judgment.
Well, it sounds like they're going to be taking out some trees already.
But we probably can't keep that. I mean, that's a separate issue.
Yes, that's
That's a
unrelated.
whole
But I mean,
separate
they
issue,
were
but-
saying that there's not much room to plant anything.
Right, but we-
some
but I
trees are already coming out anyway, so.
But I think what we can do is say, for example, replace one, whether it's on the property or not, that's, replace one, and if it's on the property, you're good. If it's not on the property, the fee in lieu is whatever, I think is what we can go with. Or, you know, replace all 3 and the fee in lieu is, I think that's where we are, is how many are we thinking they need to replace?
0 to 3, right?
Right, 0 to 3. I mean,
Wait, shall I close the public part? Did you have any questions for Rebecca?
I don't. Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait so long for your turn.
That's okay, I understand.
Okay, so the public portion of the meeting is now closed, and I'll entertain any discussion on 0 to 3, requiring 0 to 3 trees.
I would, I would vote to not have them replace any trees, but because at this point, I don't, until we know more about what's on the lot and what the footprint of the house is and all of that, I don't know how we can make that decision.
Well, I think we can.
You were
My thought
provided a
would be-
site plan to show what's on the lot
Yeah.
and what they're intending
Well,
to do.
I'm not sure how,
Yeah.
I don't completely understand how to read this site plan on here, but I don't think we should, my initial reaction is that we shouldn't worry about what's on the lot and what they're going to do from, if they have other dead trees they're going to need to take down. That's a separate issue. My initial reaction would be either 0 or 1, because they don't have a choice in this matter. They're being forced to put a sidewalk in. It's not like they can say, we'd rather keep the trees instead of the sidewalk. Putting a sidewalk in is not inexpensive, I don't think.
No, it's not.
So
Everyone
my,
has to do that where there isn't a sidewalk.
but only on our side of town. Only on the south side of town. On the north side of town,
No, it's in the sidewalk code. It's basically if the amount of work is over $1 volume, which is really low, and then if more than 50% of the houses on the block already have a sidewalk. So
Right,
that's
but I
how
mean,
the north stays away from it.
right, but then, yeah, so the north doesn't have sidewalks. So had they bought a piece of property over on Columbia, they wouldn't be in this boat.
Exactly.
So my initial reaction is either 0 or 1, because they have no choice in this.
Right, I agree. I mean, they're not saying they want to take down the tree. I mean, like I said before, they're essentially being penalized for something that has to be done.
Because there's nothing there
'Cause
already.
there's
They have
nothing
to-
there
yes.
already.
Yeah, but that lot's been an empty lot for a long time, and those trees have been growing there for a long time, and they're choosing to develop that lot, and I think the cost of developing that lot is taking out those trees. It's just the cost of developing that lot is putting in a sidewalk. Those are the costs that they're incurring by developing that lot, and I am not in favor of giving them 0. I would go with 1 or 2, but they're choosing to change the landscape of Prospect Street and take out.
Well, I
there's
think when
hardly
I
any
think
trees on
I
Prospect
think
Street.
when anybody buys a piece of property, any property in this town that is undeveloped, when somebody buys it new, I think we have to fully expect them to develop it. And the city is making out in this through getting a sidewalk, but also getting the fees from the building permit. And the public is making out because the sidewalk will bring them down so that they can then cross over to another sidewalk at a corner instead of walking through the middle of the street. So I do believe the public is making out in this. Prospect is an ocean block. You've got that unobstructed, wind tunnel coming down the street. So I think that in some ways explains why there aren't a lot of trees on that, but also the properties are, some of them are older and just haven't been redeveloped. Should they get redeveloped, they will be required to put some trees in. And they're still going to have their minimum on the lot. So, and if I fully believe that she's right, that English ivy is what's making some of that stuff look green. So when they go to take those trees down, some, higher quality trees are going to be put up because the English ivy is not helping us at this point.
No.
It's hurting us. So I don't think we can, I think that there's an overall benefit to, you have to let somebody develop their property. The city is making out by getting the sidewalk. The public is making out by getting the sidewalk. It's going to be safer for somebody to continue down that side of the street, if that's the side they're on, to cross at that corner than to cross in the middle of the street. So,
But isn't the front of that property on Lake Drive?
not necessarily, it's wherever they choose to put the front of the house.
Well, the front yard
It's the address is Lake
setback
Drive.
is Lake, yeah, because it's the narrower, the smaller distance of the two.
But should they put their front door on Prospect, the address will end up being changed to Prospect.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's
well-
you can request it.
If
I
they
mean,
get an
I've seen it
approval.
I have seen people develop corners and the address of the house changes
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I mean,
right on Newcastle. Yeah.
it's not really important for the sake of this. They're going to have entrances on both sides. So, in terms of like zoning and setbacks and stuff, East Lake is the front yard, whether they walk through the door on Prospect or not.
I just think that we have to remember that these trees are a valuable resource, and that is for, if they want to develop the lot, in addition to the other things that the city requires, we have the ability to require at least one tree, just because they're taking out the little bit of trees that are on that end of Prospect Street. So there is a gain to the public, but there's also a loss to the public. Not that those trees provide that much shade, but it's a little bit of greenery, and it's a little bit of, it's a large area of habitat, because a lot of stuff lives in there, because it's an undeveloped lot that's full of trees. But I would like to see us impose at least one tree's worth of fee in lieu, if not more. But I will entertain a motion.
Well, you can do the
Katie,
same.
what is your, well, I mean, I'm fine with one, I'm okay with two. I mean, I don't know, I mean, the property owner obviously wants to build their house.
Yes.
Right. And we have to let them build their house.
Right, I mean,
they're
I wish
like-
there was a way to sort of have the sidewalk go around, but there,
We'll be willing to
There
bet
isn't.
that this fee in lieu is not going to prevent this property owner from developing this. The sidewalk and the curbing, I don't know, they have really high curbing now. That's going to be way more expensive than two trees. This is going to be a minor expense compared with the sidewalk. And the city would get at least a little bit of shade, maybe. I just think, I think we
I'm
have to
with the
consider the
two-
trees a resource.
right, and the two trees that are, most mature are the two pines. Maybe we go with two and say the two mature trees, because
Yeah.
the other one seems a little spindly to me.
It looks like a bush anyway.
Yeah, it seems spindly to me. So the other, the two pine, I could get behind that.
Yeah, so we could do, that we're requiring two trees to be planted, or a fee in lieu of
Yeah.
two trees.
Okay, may I have a motion? Okay,
Don't forget the size.
Oh, so let me, well, it's also in inches, yes, okay, I get you, Liz.
Yeah, the street trees are smaller in the code. I usually ask for 2 inches, but I think it says as little as 1.5.
Okay.
So,
but we can make it anything we want, right? Okay,
Yeah, if you want to choose a size.
yeah.
That'll be what I attribute if they decide to use the fee in lieu. I'll use that calculation for the $400 an inch.
I think for the two mature trees, it makes sense to stick with our usual 2.5 to 3, don't you think?
well, I think 2 to 2.5 would be would be fine. You can find more trees that size. But if you want to go with 2.5 to 3, that's fine. But I think 2 to 2.5 inch would probably establish
if they
just
choose,
as well.
yeah, and if they choose to plant them on their property, they're going to be able to find those trees.
Right.
3-inch trees are not easy to come by, I don't believe.
They're not as easy. I mean, there are a number of them that are stocked because we need that size, but that's, but 2 to 2.5 inch ones will essentially end up being the same size in approximately the same amount of time.
Okay.
Well, think about it this way. If they're going to plant them, say, on the edge where there's already quite a few trees on the right of way, then tucking a 2-inch dogwood in there is going to create a lot less issues with roots and stuff than a 3-inch tree, just root ball size.
But for any tree that's planted in lieu, I would like to stick with the standard for.
Well,
400
private property is 3 inches, but like I said, the code for street trees is 1.5 inches. Most
Right,
people
and-
put 2 in though.
Well, so then the motion could be, we will allow the trees to come down, the 3 trees to come down, and we are requiring 2 to 2.5 inch caliper trees be planted as replacements, or a fee in lieu of up to 5 inches.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they've got to replace 5, if they, well, it would be, yeah, okay.
So it would basically be $400 per inch of fee in lieu for up to 5 inches.
Well, but it wouldn't be 5, right? So if they
It's
didn't plant
it's
me,
5
it
if
would
they
be 4.
didn't,
Well,
because
we
if
have
you
to
did
clarify.
2, right,
'Cause
so,
it's 2 to 2.5. So if they came to me and said, we want to pay a fee in lieu, I would charge them 4 times 400, not 5 times 400. Unless you specifically say, plant 2 trees, 2 to 2.5 inches, or pay a fee in lieu of
$400 per inch.
We can just say a fee in lieu for 5 inches.
Yeah.
And if
but what if they choose to plant one and get the fee for one, the fee for one would be,
Minus whatever they planted. If the fee in lieu is 5 inches and they planted
Oh,
2 inch,
got
the
it.
fee in lieu
Okay.
would be 3.
okay,
Yeah, so we can do it like we did the other one.
True.
up
Okay,
to 5
okay.
inches.
okay,
Is that makes, I was just saying 5 inches because that's,
right, 2 at 2.5.
Right.
Right. And then I see, Liz, you're saying you would subtract out, if they planted one, and we said the fee in lieu was for 5 inches at $400, and they planted a 3-inch tree, you would charge them for 2 inches at $400 an inch.
Yes.
so that makes sense
Yes,
then. That's
yes,
what
yes,
we're,
yes.
If you could just restate it just concisely if possible.
Yeah, I think we're still working through. I don't think the motion is out there yet. Do you want me to do it?
sure, you go right ahead. You're more
Become
succinct than
the
I
expert
am.
one now on the
Okay,
motions.
so I move that we require the replacement of 2 of the trees to be removed at 2 to 2.5 inches in caliper, or a fee in lieu for 5 inches at $400 per inch.
We're up to.
Up to 5.
Or a fee, well, if they Alex, do I need to? So if I'm saying that for a fee in lieu for 5 inches at $400 per inch,
That sounds clear. Is that clear enough for you, Liz?
Yeah, I'm clear.
okay, okay.
That sounds to me like they have to do one or the other. That's,
Maybe I should say, I move that we, that we require the replacement of 2 trees at 2 to 2.5 inches in caliber, or, is that right? Would that be right? And/or a fee in lieu at $400 per inch for a maximum of 5 inches. With the fee in lieu able to be reduced by the inches of trees planted on their property for this.
I think you could just go with and instead of
And,
or.
okay, so, let's start again. I move that we require the replacement of 2 trees at a size of 2 to 2.5 inches caliper, and a fee in lieu for, that makes it sound like they have to do both. Or a fee in lieu for a maximum of 5 inches at $400 per inch, with those inches being able to be reduced by, you know, if they choose to plant one of the trees.
And
You don't like it?
It's fine, but you're not stating about removing 3 trees.
Okay, I move that we grant the permit to remove the 3 trees with the condition that we require replacement of 2 of those trees at a size of 2 to 2.5 inches caliper, or a fee in lieu for $400 per inch for a maximum of 5 inches, with the fee being able to be reduced by
Caliper size.
but the caliper of, if they choose to plant a single tree, being reduced by the number of inches of that tree that was planted.
Caliper size planted. I second that.
okay. I'm not going to try to repeat it this time. I think we've got it. A vote of yes means we approve removing the trees and the fee in lieu. A vote of yes means you approve removing the trees and imposing, planting 2 trees and/or the fee in lieu, and a vote of no, good luck.
Good luck fighting this.
Means that we do not allow the trees to be removed. So, would you like to vote?
I vote aye.
if you could just please briefly
I
state
vote
your
aye
wish.
for, because I believe that they have a right to develop their lot. They are required to put in a sidewalk. Those trees have to be removed to allow the sidewalk, and I believe it's fair to require the replacement of only 2 of those trees.
Yes, my vote is yes. I agree, because they have to, because there's not really an alternative to take or to put in the sidewalk, and it's reasonable to plant the two trees since they're being taken out for the public good, be planted back for the public good.
I vote in favor. I vote in favor of the motion for the reasons already stated.
And the chair agrees. I vote in favor of the motion, and I think it recognizes that trees are a critical resource in our community, and if you have to take them down to develop your property, you need to do something to replace what you're taking down. So with that, our meeting is concluded. I don't think I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I move that we adjourn.
I move we adjourn too.
Adjourned. Goodness.